Alrighty, here we are, and there you are. Thank you for doing the watching. Don't you forget those questions we're posing to you this morning. It has to do with our press freedom ranking, and we've dropped from 30th to 60th. Want to find out what you think about that? Share your thoughts with us with the hashtag AM Show. Time now for the news review, and we're joined by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Later we'll have lawyer Martin Kpebu, but he is the Director of Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. And there he is. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Very well.
Great to see. So let's get into the newspapers this morning. But even before we do so, I'd like to get into the latest press freedom rating, a global rating, Reporters Without Borders. And I'm sure, Doc, you've taken a look at the document. You've taken a look at the summary of it.
Yes, I have.
What are your quick reflections on it? Before I even get into it proper, what are your quick reflections on it?
It's very unfortunate that we have sunk so low in terms of the ranking, because democracy thrives on a free media, independent and fearless. And here you are, you have a report that is, like indictment on our system. Then it's a cause for worrying, because you cannot sustain, or as it were, strengthen the frontiers of a country's democracy without a media that is free from any type of controls. And for me, it's a worrying situation.
Let's look at the breakdown. So in 17 years, we have never sunk this low. In fact, our score is something that we've not seen in the last 17 years. We've also dropped from 30th to 60th. The ratings cover 180 countries. It means, yes, we're still better than 120 or 119 countries, if you like, but it's still very dicey in there. I want us to reflect on this in the context of some of what we've heard from people in the media, people who may not be in the media but have spoken to the issues, like Sir Sam Jonah, who spoke about the fact that we're being muzzled, that culture of silence is coming back. He was taken on for that. We saw what happened to Caleb Kuda, Zoe Abubeidu Lanza. We saw what happened to Bobi Ansa and a number of other people, maybe people who are not even journalists, like Oliver Barker-Vormawor, and he has his own context. But in the midst of all of this, we had Elizabeth Ohene, who herself has worked before with the BBC in recent times, come out with a lot of stuff about the media and certain things that are being done, taking on the BBC itself. Then we come and we're faced with the reality of this latest result. I want you to reflect on it in that context, Doc.
Yes, it's a whole basket of issues here. How we have arrived here from where we are coming from is a function of a number of factors. One is lack of professionalism on the part of some journalists, where they've gone beyond the board to carry out stories unprofessionally, and they've had their fingers bent. That is one aspect. Another aspect is also the issue of, polarization that has characterized the work of journalists, some of them, of course, and this country, creating all manner of problems. And tied to that is the issue of having a law that makes it impossible for journalists to operate freely. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the law on false publication and all that, right? This is a law that has been passed and is still in our books. And the security apparatus are using them. And my worry is that if you have such a law, then if you don't take care and it is enforced rigidly, you are going to have a situation like self-censorship, which the report captures clearly, that it has produced something like this. The other bit about that conversation also is the fact that if you don't want any law in your books, there must be effort to remove them from the book so that it is not there. And that is a situation we find ourselves. How we balance these things has created a whole lot of problem for us. But as a student of politics, if you see the signs like this, then it's a cause for worrying in the sense that no democracy gets entrenched with a weak media. So the media component is critical for the survival of a democracy such as ours, which is very nascent and so fragile. So we need to do everything possible to make sure that the frontiers of our media landscape, it gets strengthened, and then we are able to ensure that the democracy that we have is nurtured properly and consolidated. If you fail to do this, then I'm afraid you are going to have difficulty in maintaining this current democracy.
And so what would be your specific call? You speak broadly about it, and later on the show we'll have a discussion on that with a representative of the GJ, among other people. But what then would be your call as far as the state apparatus is concerned, government? We're not being put in a positive light. What do you expect to see from state agencies, ministries, maybe even the president, to remedy the situation?
One is that there must be a conscious effort on the part of government to make sure that they move towards dealing with the law that still stands in our book by repealing them. We have to do that immediately so that we have a very friendly law that will enable journalists to operate freely. That is not to say that we are giving license for journalists to go overboard. Journalists must work with their ethics and be professional as well, so that at the end of the day, we all smile. Two, we also need as a people, and I'm talking about journalists, that they should be very careful when they are publishing or they are writing stories. It must be apt, it must be appropriate, and it must be truthful at all times, because that's a cardinal principle of journalism. And you don't need, in a democracy, you need to feed the people with right information, not sensational stories. And then you need to be professional and above reproach. Journalists should carry that thing along when they are in a democratic system. And we should also make sure that the law enforcement agencies, such as the police and all that, they handle journalists carefully. There is no point beating, manhandling, and all that creates all manner of problems for us in terms of ranking. That you can arrest somebody, but make sure that you follow the process through and through, and you go according to the dictates of the law. Any other thing that a law enforcement agency want to do outside this, they should remember that it will affect the rankings of this country. All of us must come on board and make sure that we work as professional journalists, and also the state apparatus must also know that they are not above the board. I want to urge people that when people breach the laws and infringe upon the rights of journalists should be able to take the police on, take them to court. After all, they are not above the law, so that we can have sanity. That is the whole essence of democracy, that you govern with rule of law and nobody is above the law.
Point made, and I couldn't agree with you more. Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper, Doc. Protecting jobs, income security for workers, social partners out with policies as soon. President hints on May Day. And the government and its social partners will roll out the right mix of policies to help protect jobs and incomes. Delivering the keynote address at the May parade last Sunday, President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo said, quote, "Government, with the agreement of the social partners, will shortly engage organized labor, employers, and key stakeholders to fashion the right mix of policies to help protect jobs and incomes. The policies would include the rollout of unemployment benefits or insurance." That excites me. Training and retraining of workers, extension of moratorium in payment of income and corporate taxes, and pragmatism in labor administration and enforcement. Now, Akufo-Addo, the president, also said in the era of COVID-19 and beyond, it was undeniable that we had a collective responsibility and duty of all social partners. He explained that incomes earned by workers were a function of the jobs created by employers and the creation of an enabling environment by the government to help sustain enterprise growth. He touched on conditions of service, single spine, among other things. But for you, Doc, reflecting on this matter, and again, putting it into context, where the TUC is saying, give us a 20% cost of living allowance because inflation is at 19.4%, and we won't take anything less than that. Again, reflecting on the fact that when you consider our minimum wage, 80% of it is taken by the price of 1 liter of fuel. How excited are you by these words of Mr. President?
I am not excited at all because, you see, workers must be given their due.
Right.
Sometimes you hear from people that, are we sure we are ensuring value for money? How much are workers, contributing to the development of this country in terms of their work?
Right.
Just posing that on the fact that we pay so much in terms of what salary towards the workers. It takes a lot from the economy and all that. Stories, I don't buy them with respect. Why am I saying that? Because if you think about a situation without the bureaucracy, without public and civil servants, there will be no country at all. All right. We agree that there are problems within the bureaucracy and the public service. We agree. And that is why there's always a conscious effort to make sure that you bring them up to scratch. And you can't afford not to give them what is their due. Look at inflation situation in the country. Look at the economic situation. And workers are struggling to survive. That in itself is, anti-productivity. So government must be sober, reflect on this thing, and then meet the workers halfway. But the blanket statement that, yes, I'm not ready to pay, I will lose this much, I think that it is very unfair and unfortunate because workers also deserve the best. Look at the way we manage public affairs. There are a lot of waste within the system. Government must turn its attention to that place and deal with it. Look at corruption that we have. Transparency International report speaks volume about this thing. And all these things are, monies that slip through our fingers. Government must be careful and handle these things so that the workers will have their due. Of course, workers also must up their game. The issue of, apathy in work, poor job, execution and all that must be a thing of the past so that at the end of the day, whoever goes to equity will have a clean hand to confront the government and demand your fair share.
That is interesting, the perspective you've put to it, but there are different ways of dealing with this. In fact, in recent times, on May Day, we heard Mr. President say, if you want better salaries, work, be more productive so that we can give you more as well. But that's easier said than done. Again, to practicalize it, in other jurisdictions, what do? I mean, we have clocking systems. We have all of that. So if you want to ensure that public sector workers are at post, if you want to ensure that they are doing what they are supposed to be there to do, there are mechanisms. It may cost us something, but in the long term, it will be to our benefit. So if you want to guarantee that people are working, technology is available. What is your take on that?
I agree with you. It's a solid point that if you want to deal with some of these problems that have bedeviled the civil service or public service, you need to put in mechanism to arrest this. And if you gloss over this and come and complain, I don't see the point. Governance is nothing but making use of resources, both material and human, to make life better for people. Right. Once you are not able to do that, then I believe that the capacity of government with regard to that is weak, simply put.
My final bit on this story. Now, it interests me because in other jurisdictions, they get unemployment benefits. If you look at the United States, when COVID hit, a lot of people who were not working were getting more benefits. Even under Donald John Trump, certain measures were put in place to ensure that there are safety systems or safety nets. Here, we don't have that. So you're not working, you're not earning an income, and unless someone looks down on you looks on you with some kindness, you're going to starve. That's the reality. He talks about a rollout of unemployment benefits or insurance. I don't have the full details of it, but it's got me thinking. Our economy is wobbling. We're not on our feet. The projections are that even next year, debt to GDP is going to go higher, and that the economy is going to shrink even further. When you look at all of these dynamics and the fact that we are thinking of rolling out unemployment benefits. I don't know what form they will take, but if LEAP and the others are anything to go by, I have a lot of questions. What's your take?
It is a good idea, but I think the timing is wrong because we need to get the basics right. At the moment, the economy, as you rightly put it, is struggling. People are finding it difficult to make ends meet. We are also complaining about low productivity. Where are you going to get the additional money to fund this thing? Government must run away from that rhetoric and then plethora of what promises that they are not able to meet. This will come back to haunt them during election campaign and all that. Government must shy away from that because there is no point promising heaven and earth and only to deliver something small. It doesn't help anybody because government must know and know clearly that it doesn't have the capacity to do that. There are certain unsettled, problems that the government must fix and fix them now. Then stop, promoting all these things, promising here and there. There's no point. Governance is that you take a day at a time, reflect on that, and then come up with policies that will stand the test of time. That is all governance is all about.
Tied to that, on page 16, single spine pay policy worsens salaries. That's according to the TUC, and the Secretary General of the Congress, Dr. Anthony Yalba, has said pay differentials in the public service have worsened despite the implementation of the single spine pay policy over the past 12 years. He said the SSPP had rather distorted the salary structure, with some public sector workers on the single spine salary structure currently receiving very low salaries, which were woefully inadequate for any meaningful life in these difficult times. So here's a bit of a breakdown. The TUC Secretary General said the highest salary on the SSSS in 2022 was 7,404 cedis per month, with the lowest being 415 cedis per month. He said for the last year and this year, when public sector workers on the SSSS were offered 4% and 7% pay increments respectively, some state-owned enterprises awarded themselves over 25% salary increases, though their salaries were higher than those for workers on the single spine salary structure. So your quick take on that. The SSSS, I don't know whether you benefit from it or how it falls as a university lecturer, but what is your appreciation of it? Do you side with Dr. Yalba on this matter?
I do. You are paying somebody 400 Ghana. What is he going to do with that? An ordinary man. Right. Can he survive on that for a month? And yet we are saying that we'll protect the public purse and fight corruption. That for me, it is untenable. You can't do this because a hungry man, as I've always said, is a hungry man. So it's an angry man for real. So you need to be able to balance this act properly. Let us take a second look at pay structure of government officials and the public sector workers, and then do a certain cost-benefit analysis and see what we can do. Because at the moment, what we are seeing and what we are hearing is no good at all. It will not going to promote any productivity. It's going to create a lot of pain in the hearts and minds of workers, and that will not, enable them to deliver what they are supposed to deliver. It is unfortunate that we are there. But all the time I have said that if government want to do anything, it has all the resources, it has all the wherewithal to do it. But what I'm seeing that over the years, government has failed. They are not ready to settle this one. They only pay lip service to them. And then when their time get to an end, they leave office. It is very unfortunate. And then people must also be vigilant and take government on. Right. All right. If you need to go to court, go there and make sure that your rights are upheld. And that is the whole business about democracy, that you don't sit on your right and that people trample upon them with impunity, that you don't have the reasonable salary and all that. Look at the Constitution. It said equal pay for equal work. Is that what we are seeing in this country? We have thrown it away. And government is not doing anything to salvage this situation. Workers are also sitting down quietly. Look, democracy doesn't work that way. You need to fight for your right and make sure that you work within the framework of the law.
Fight for Your Rights reminds me of a song by Lucky Dube from way back. May his soul rest in peace. But my final story from the Daily Graphic newspaper. NDC will repeal e-levy. So let me just give you some details. I'm sure you followed that story. But former President John Dramani Mahama has stated that the NDC will repeal the Electronic Transactions Act, describing it as a regressive tax which imposes hardship on Ghanaians. Quoting him, he says, a new National Democratic Congress government, God willing, and with the votes of the sovereign people of Ghana in 2025, will repeal the e-levy act. Simple question. Is it practical? Is it patriotic? Is it the right way to go, do you feel? And maybe to add, if Ghana's economic fortunes change for the better, much better, would you still say we should continue with the e-levy, Doc?
I am not among those who believe that we shouldn't have a tax such as e-levy. Far from it. I support e-levy, but the magnitude of the taxation is what I'm worried about. And my worry is simply born out of the statement by experts in the area of economics and finance, who are saying that the ordinary Ghanaian, given the economic circumstances at the time, the best way out for us is to peg the tax between a range of 0.5 to 1%. I am in support of that proposal, but look, my thinking did not, realize anything simply because the government has passed it at a point of 1.50. Look, if you have such a system, then you are likely to have a problem because from the word go, people are not happy about such taxation. It has its own implications on governance and, productivity. That is a fact. But what NDC is saying, I disagree, and I disagree with respect. What am I saying? Because you can never run any state without taxation. It is a function of the state capacity. We call it the extractive capacity of the state. The state must find resources to run the affairs of the state. We are looking for what? Increment in pay. We are looking for better conditions of service. We are looking for infrastructure and all that. Where is government going to get resources to do this? That is not to say that government cannot think outside the box and look at other alternatives that will help us to generate more resources. But for me, I don't think e-levy is a bad tax, but the magnitude is what I'm worried about. If government can do something about it as we go along, fine. But for any party to suggest that when it comes to office, it will throw it away, I know that it is just political rhetoric. The reality will dawn on that party very soon. If their wish comes through, that they take the reins of government and govern the affairs of this country. Obviously, you can't run away from what? E-taxation, given the manner in which we manage corruption, we manage waste in the system. You have no choice than to look for something like this and then bring it on board to augment the resources that we have.
So you do not believe, from where you sit, that the NDC would do this. And we have precedent. I always go back to VAT and what the MPP did, the sequence of demonstrations, Kumi Preko, CMA Preko, VMA Preko, they came in and even increased the percentage of it. So I can understand where you're coming from. But are you saying then that some taxes cannot be removed? Because even this administration, they talk about some nuisance taxes that they took off. But of course, they also introduced other taxes. So it could simply be a game of, I take away this tax and introduce another tax.
Yeah, if that's what you are talking about, that's fine. But when you make it specific that you take away e-levy, then the conversation is on e-levy and want to see whether it's a reality that you will throw that one out. Right. But I'm not sure that they will do that because, look at the way MPP also took the government on. I'm not sure, because if you look at the way MPP even took on the government in 1995 about what VAT, all right, one would have thought that when they gain power, they will throw it away. But they maintain it up to date. Right. A good policy is a good policy, and that is the one that stands the test of time.
Let's quickly look at this. It's something I'll discuss with Martin Kpebu as well. Minorities e-levy motion incompetent. That's in the Daily Guide newspaper, page 6, and that's according to the Attorney General, Godfrey Yabua, a dummy. And he has described an application for interlocutory injunction filed by some minority members of parliament against the implementation of the e-levy as incompetent and saddled with, quote, factual inaccuracies or uncertainties. Now, these uncertainties, the AG in an affidavit in opposition to the motion argues the plaintiffs have failed to make out a case for the Supreme Court to grant an injunction. Now, Parliament on Tuesday, March the 29th, 2022, as we know, passed the 1.5% levy on electronic transactions, with a minority walking out of Parliament in protest of the passage. Today being the 4th day of May is when this matter is going to come to the fore in court, and we'll find out whether the injunction is going to hold. But upon your reflection, some say government should have approached this matter cautiously. In fact, that they shouldn't have even started the e-levy on May Day, Labor or Workers' Day, but to just delay it, allow the court to go through the process today and see what happens. But it's been implemented. We're already paying the e-levy. How do you react to these different dynamics?
You know my position on these things, all right? Allow the court to rule. We'll come back and look at it, because the proper forum is where the matter is. Let the court sit on it, make pronouncement. We'll come back and reflect on that. As a journalist, I respect these things.
Let's also look at this bit. We're going back to some labor issues and a different perspective that we've spoken of, but good to bring it up. Removing taxes on petroleum products, not the best. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. You would recall that on May Day, when the Secretary General of the TUC spoke, Dr. Ba, he indicated that he would want government to totally take off the taxes on petroleum products. And Mr. President responded that accounts for about 4 billion Ghana cedis of our revenue, and so they cannot be taken off. But it's interesting. We've had the likes of Kojo Poku, energy analysts, and a whole lot of them, Dankanamwa and others, say we can indeed take off some of these taxes, especially when you're slapping the people with an e-levy. Again, when you look at the dynamics when it comes to the pricing, I've already mentioned, minimum wage, 80% of it is the cost of a liter of fuel. What do you make? What do you make of this call? And do you feel it is right when government says we simply can't touch it?
I differ. Why am I saying that? You see, governance is what? Give and take, Giorgio. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue. When experts are telling you that it's possible, and you are saying that it cannot be done, then I find it very interesting. Interesting in the sense that, look, the two can sit down, reflect on it, and then come to what? A certain agreed position that will favor everybody. But when you have government that says that, I'm not going to listen to that, then it becomes what? Either you take it or you leave it. But that I have a problem with. You see, government pusher must reflect something different. If we are looking at what suggestions like that, because professionals are professionals, they will not suggest anything that will run down the state. After all, when we lose this state, where else can we go? This is the only state that we have. So people will come with professional ideas. You need to listen, reflect on them, and make use of it. But when you just jettison some of these things quickly, then it creates a problem. I have a difficulty, and it is not only this government. In the Fourth Republic, it is gradually becoming a feature that sometimes you see government pusher and you ask yourself whether government is running its own business. It's a business of the public. We owe it a duty to make contribution. So when we talk, government must have what? The hearing ears to listen to us, and then have the spirit to accommodate. Dissent is critical in a democracy. Though it is not easy, but you need to bear with that. That is the spirit that democracy work with.
Let's quickly look at this as we wrap with the Daily Guide newspaper. And if you're a student of law or a practitioner or a political scientist, you would definitely be familiar with a landmark case of Roe versus Wade. And it comes into the picture here as the Supreme Court in the United States votes to repeal abortion law. Now, protesters gathered outside the U.S. Supreme Court after news outlet Politico released what it said was a draft majority opinion from the court overturning the landmark abortion judgment known as Roe versus Wade. So just to pick out some interesting bits, in the reported draft opinion published late Monday, Alito said he believed that, quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives, the opinion actually read. But we've also heard from President Biden, who has said he has called on pro-choice lawmakers to enshrine abortion rights into law. And he says Roe has been the law of the land for almost 50 years, and basic fairness and the stability of our law demand that it not be overturned. That is President Biden. You would also recall that In the last election, that was one of the things. Evangelical Christians and others were saying Biden was pro-abortion. Trump came across as anti-abortion, and so they wanted that vote. But what do you make of it now? Crisis in the court system in the United States, or the right tangent being followed?
I'm not saying they are in crisis. No, I don't think so. Sometimes the court makes a decision and reflect on it and say that we're wrong from the first time and that we want to make corrections. There's nothing wrong. Remember, we are human beings. Right. We can make mistakes. But when we make mistakes, we should honorably admit and make corrections, because judgments are nothing but what? They're the building blocks of society. You need them to be precise at all times, because they serve as a guide for our conduct and for our behavior and all that. So for me, it is a good thing. Let us observe and let's see how it goes. If people are not interested they know what to do. They can go and test the law through a review or whatnot. But for now, I believe that, look, abortion has been a thorny issue in the United States, and this has divided the two main political parties along the two lines that we find, those who are pro and who are against. So all these things go to deepen the structures that they put in place, and also test the robustness of the political system. I am interested in when a law pans out like this, then we are knowing that we are getting democracy to become the only game in town, as Lenz put it.
Let's look at this next bit, and even as I do so, I would just go to Ghana at a Crossroads, the entire document as presented by John Dramani Mahama. I just want to pick out something he said as I state the next bit from Republic Press, okay? Because Republic Press has this bit, sack Ofori Atta, Mahama tells Akufo-Addo. And I'm about to give you some of what he uses as his justification in talking about the economy. I'll just get to that briefly. But just to take from the story, former President Mahama has asked President Akufo-Addo to sack the Minister of Finance for his poor handling of the country's economy. He told the president to take heed his advice, because Mr. Ofori Atta, who has been serving in the role since 2017, has not lived up to expectation in the management of the economy. According to him, Ghana's economy ranks among the worst managed in the world. It is characterized by unsustainable public debt due to an unprecedented fiscal deficit, comparatively high and still rising inflation, a rapidly depreciating currency, spiraling cost of doing business, ever-rising cost of living, high level of corruption. It goes on and on. Justified call?
Very difficult call. Difficult in the sense that it has two ways. If a minister is not performing, the president who appointed him should not waste time and throw him out quickly, so that you save the government from attacks such as this. But it is also fair to say that, look, we are looking at this second term. How far have we gone? If you look at the things that have brought us here, are you saying that all are due to mismanagement on the part of the finance minister? I disagree strongly in this regard, because some of them are beyond his ability. All right. I think that we need to reflect when we make such calls. There's nothing wrong pointing out that, yes, if there is a non-performing minister, he must be axed. That is part of the language of governance. I agree. But we need to be very careful about it, to make sure that the person that we want to throw out, whether indeed he is the right person to throw out. Otherwise, we'll be sacking everybody, and that will not get the work done. We need to balance it properly. But I know that the president will look at this and see. My worry with this government is that we have seen difficulties from the first era up to date. And some ministers should have gone long time. You still keep them. But we want to tell the government is that when we want to maintain non-performing ministers in the office, you end up destroying your credibility, and they are not going to produce the results that you need to stand on for the next election. It's a warning to them. They must take it or leave it.
Right before we part ways, Doc, and as I introduce Martin Kpebu. Martin, a very good morning to you. Hello, Mr. Kpebu.
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning.
Thank you for joining the conversation. Just hold for me for 1 minute. Doc, I just want you to look at this final bit in Republic Press. I spend 20 million Ghana cedis on humanitarian work every year. Brian Champong says so, Member of Parliament for Abetifi constituency. And he has revealed that he spends as much as 20 million Ghana cedis on humanitarian activities every year. The MP made this known when he was delivering a speech during an acclamation ceremony held in the constituency where 10 executives of the New Patriotic Party were allowed to contest unopposed. According to the MP, no member of parliament and no minister could boast of contributing to the development of party faithful more than he did. Does this come as a surprise to you? Doc, that is for you.
Okay. There's nothing wrong when a party member feels that he needs to build the support base of his party by contributing his quota to the party. There's nothing wrong. There is also nothing wrong when you realize that your people are vulnerable, they are poor, and you need to support them. What is wrong about it? It is only wrong where the source of money is wrong and where it's coming from is dubious. Then you can question that. But let us remember that this gentleman...
That precisely is my concern, because in this country, there's no paper trail. We can practically not trail, especially with people who are politically exposed. You can practically not trail. I know the banks are doing something, that there are mechanisms for people who are politically exposed, that even when you deposit money and all of that I know. But beyond that, I mean, what about not using the banking system? What about money laundering and all of that? I'm not insinuating that in his case, it is what happens. But it triggered my curiosity. We don't have the mechanisms in place to even detect, do we?
What prevents us from putting those systems in place? What are we waiting for? If we want to strengthen the frontiers of our system to fight corruption and all that. But you see, once you don't have that, you cannot complain at all. I know, the little that I know, that the gentleman is a businessman and he's doing the work genuinely. And if he has the resources and he wants to support his party, fine. I want to see a situation where they would take up other challenges within the society, help build a very strong system for our people and all that. Look at the youth. A large number of them marauding in our street without doing anything. So if there's somebody within a party who feels that, look, I have resources, instead of throwing them into business that will not help the people, and I want to build my party, why not? Let us also remember that political parties need to be nurtured, developed, so that they deliver for their people. Otherwise, there is no point following any party.
Doc, always refreshing catching up with you. You always dilate on the issues so beautifully. We're grateful for your time, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, and do have a good day.
I'm grateful. And my greetings to the great lawyer.
Martin Kpebu, I hope you heard that.
Yes. I'm humble. Thanks, Doc. We are learning.
All right.
Most grateful.
Good.
And that was Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, Director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. But let me now bring in Martin Kpebu. We're looking at Article 1041 of the 1992 Constitution. We're also considering the bit about that interlocutory injunction that will be looked at today at the Apex Court when it comes to the minority and the fact that they feel the right processes were not followed when the e-levy bill was passed into law. I'd like you to walk us through the motion for the second reading as far as this is concerned, and why it is said that it is in contravention of Article 1041, and again, what you are looking forward to ahead of today's proceedings.
Oh, Mr. Kaku, I think I was asked to comment on the lawsuit. I've not followed the motion in Parliament.
Right. So that is fine. You can comment on what we're discussing then, the law in respect of this exact situation. They're asking for an interlocutory injunction. We can take it from there.
Yes, great. Yes. So basically, the first thing is that when you sue, there are a lot of the causes of action. So let's put it simply this way. When you take a matter to court, usually there is the right that a person can exercise to ask for an interlocutory injunction, which is to say that ask the judge to restrain, to stop, okay, to put an end to some actions that the person you've sued is undertaking, because in your estimation, that action will kind of nullify the very reason for which you've sued him. So in this context, Mr. Harun Edrusu, Honorable Harun Edrusu and the rest sued that the e-levy act is illegal because there was no quorum at the time it was passed, among others. So they said that the court should stop the implementation of the e-levy act because the e-levy act is illegal, so that the court would then go into the matter, all right? Yes, so that's what they did. Now, the technical bit is that the date for hearing that injunction is post the implementation of the e-levy act. So as we are all aware, government started implementing on the 1st of May, but the motion is slated for, is it 9th or something like that, subsequently.
Right.
Yes, so then the question is, of course, you hear in legal circles and also in the public domain, we've discussed it a number of times, that when there is a motion pending, that's a motion, an application asking for injunction, even though it has not yet been formally granted, the person who is undertaking that action has to stop. Yes, that's a well-settled principle. Except that there's a certain area, when it comes to applying it in the public law area, that is, the public bodies, the practice has not been consistent. Sometimes, when the motion is pending, you find the public body saying that, oh, we will not take any action, we'll wait for the court to finish. At that time, then you see that the public entity or public body would go ahead, like what government has done in this instance. So, Mr. Akufo, the point is that in law, yes, when a motion is pending, generally, a lawyer would advise you that don't do anything. What the motion is seeking to say, that's the application for injunction.
Right.
What it is seeking to restrain you from doing, stop right away, even before the court considers it. And it helps a lot. But, well, you know,
so that was an option. That was an option that government could have taken, but they decided not to take that option. And as we know, from Sunday, the rollout of the e-levy started. But it is not wrong. Per what you're saying, there's nothing wrong with that. It's an option, and they took it.
Not that it's an option. So to be very straight with you, like, it's a minority opinion. So let's put it that way. What they did, it's in the legal circle. So let's say majority, minority. I'm looking for ways to express it. It's not usually, it's conduct that is frowned upon. So if you ask a lawyer, I'm looking for something that will be very objective, so that no matter who you call, even if you call people who are in their circles, the person will tell you that, oh yes, this thing is true. So it's a slender opinion. Majority of lawyers will tell you that, look, once there's an injunction, stop. After all, so in this case, you know something.
So Mr. Kwebu, before you go on, just to clarify, if you were advising this government, you would have told them not to start the execution of the e-levy on Sunday. You would have advised that they not do that.
Mr. Akaku, definitely, without batting an eyelid. So this is what you do. Yes, I would have told them to stop. But in between that, what they had to do, I also am very sensitive to the fact that government wants to raise revenue. I mean, we all know that this e-levy is like a Marshall Plan. For the history students, I hope you know what the Marshall Plan did in reviving the
after the World War
of Europe after the Second World War. But let's come to the point. The point is that, so because the injunction could hurt the implementation of the e-levy act, what I would have done is that then you apply for what we call abridgment of time. So instead of the court waiting to hear it on the 9th, you apply that this matter is so urgent, so can we hear it on 30th April, 29th April?
Right.
And we all know that the Chief Justice, even, criminal matters, for now we have courts on Saturdays and Sundays.
Right, weekends.
So if you apply that in the national interest, you want the case to be heard before 1st May, the Chief Justice would have granted it. So that's what I would have done. Not to just look at the motion and then say that, oh, this thing will not succeed. Yes, Mr. Akafu, to be very frank with you, the chances of such a motion usually succeeding are very slim. But it doesn't mean that because it usually doesn't succeed, you can just look at it and say, oh, it usually doesn't succeed, so I'll go ahead. No, that's wrong.
So quickly on this bit, you've confirmed that if you were advising government, you wouldn't have told them to go ahead. And in fact, like you've pointed out, there was a very good alternative. You comply, but you push for an earlier hearing of that matter so that you can know what the way forward is or what the verdict is. By not doing that, do you feel in any way there was a show of disrespect by the executive to the judiciary or the judicial process?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They showed disrespect.
Yeah. Without doubt. It's so clear. We don't even need to talk, spill more words on it. Absolutely. Very disrespectful. The option was to have asked for an early hearing. That's it.
But this is an administration that has spoken time without number about the rule of law and respect for the justicial system. In fact, they have mentioned that they are winning cases based on fact, and so you must respect the system. And you're suggesting that that same system, which has a lawyer at the helm of our affairs as executive or chief executive of the country, disrespected the judiciary?
Yes, Mr. Akufo, that is what it is. It just tells you how in human nature, a lot of the time, somebody says, consistency is not a human virtue. We are not always consistent as human beings. So that's why it's playing out here.
Okay, so to wrap, we have less than a minute to go. To wrap the conversation, apart from this particular bit, the interlocutory injunction, we also have the Supreme Court looking at the payments for allowances to spouses of the president and vice. That is also happening in court today. I know we didn't prompt you about that, but when you look at the salary levels as of June 2020, and as proposed by the Emoluments Committee, 47,000 plus for Mr. President, for the First Lady, 33,270, then the Vice President, 39,000 plus, the Second Lady, 32,000 plus. What is your quick reflection on this? What are you looking forward to today in court?
2 points. I bring up the refrain. When the matter is in court, we would desist from discussing the merit. So there is a hamstring here. We cannot discuss the merit. That's the position we've chosen for ourselves as a country, that when a matter is in court, we shouldn't discuss the merit. We should give the court the opportunity to settle the issue. All right. And then number 2, so maybe if you had prompted me earlier, I would have said you could have gone for the tape. When this matter came up, I was on News File that Saturday, and we discussed it, so my opinions are out there. But those ones we could have played, because those are old comments. But for this morning, I will reserve comment and wait for the court to finish.
Okay, to conclude, finally, our press freedom ranking, the latest from Reporters Without Borders, does not paint us in a very good light. We've dropped from 30th to 60th in the span of a year. It's the worst performance in 17 years. What is your quick reflection on that? Is it reflective of the reality on the ground?
Absolutely. Yeah, the writing was on the wall. When these things, Kaka's murder last year, and the other incidents of this freedom of the press came up, we kept saying that, hey, these things don't paint us well in the international community. We'll lose our standing. When we say we'll lose our standing in the international community, yes, this is one of the measures. And so if we've dropped to 60th, it tells you that, yes, we've just reaped what we sowed. So we've reaped what we sowed. And it may even look worse next year, because let's not forget, the ranking, this is not based on this year's arrest. No, it's not based on the terrible February we had. You remember in February, Bubi and Sess arrest.
Right.
Then what do you call it?
Exactly. I get the point you're making. So it's based on last year and all the happenings in there, right?
So we are in for a very bad rule. So next year, it appears we may even be worse, because in February this year, the arrest of Bubi, the Atta, some FM, attacks, and all that. Okay. So that is it. It just tells you that we need to change. The fact that we are not happy with what a journalist says doesn't mean that we can just go in and use brawn, just attack him. So we have due process. Report to the National Media Commission.
Okay.
Or if it's so bad that you want to sue, you sue the journalist. But to attack the journalist physically and begin to mess out, your own form of discipline, it's not on. We've moved on. So we've really reaped what we sowed, and it may even get worse for us next year.
Lawyer Martin Kpebu, we're grateful for your time with us this morning. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. And initially we had Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, and now we've just had lawyer Martin Kpebu sharing his thoughts on some matters there as well. Do stay with us on the AM show. We have sports and more. Later, don't you forget, in our big stories, we're talking about this self-same matter when it comes to the latest press freedom ranking and how Ghana, well, has taken up that ignominious position. Bernice Abubeidu Lanza will be with you to address those issues. And don't you forget, we have some questions for you as well on the e-levy and how we're faring in terms of freedom. So do stay. We'll be right back.